The first gesture I want to look at is this gesture here, the pointed finger that he uses a lot, and he usually couples it with a very stern tone. In the videos I'll show you, he uses it when he's addressing or he's talking about the Assad regime, when he's been questioned about Benghazi, and in relation to the Ukraine crisis when he's referring to the Russian government. Or how his voice becomes more stern when he finger points. It's usually with his, it's one of his hands. Have a look. When he says, let me make something crystal clear.
But let me be crystal clear about something. Iran is currently a major actor.
So there we go. Let me make something very crystal clear, and his voice gets very stern. It happens, oops, I'm changing the videos. It happens again in this video here.
What has to be resolved in Geneva? Now I want to make one other thing very, very clear.
His voice becomes stern again. I want to make something very, very clear. He does it in this video again, finger pointing with a stern voice.
If the Assad regime believes that this is not enforceable and that we are not serious, they will play games.
So again, both fingers are doing finger pointing and he sounds very stern. He does it very aggressively in this video.
Not likely to happen. If the United States of America doesn't do this, Senator, is it more or less likely that Assad does it again?
So there we go. He's confronting the senator with a very, very aggressive question. He does it even more aggressively in this video. Watch out for when he says, "I am going to finish, Senator." He says it with a lot of sternness and force in his voice.
That wasn't a cautious thing to do when I did it.
Mr. Secretary,
secondly, when I was in the Senate, I'm going to finish, Congressman. I am going to finish.
So I am going to finish, and he's got his stern finger up again. And if you link this to the Ukraine crisis, he does it here, but his finger isn't pointing up, it's pointing down. But his voice still gets very stern when the finger starts pointing.
They overwhelmingly approved the new government, even with members of Yanukovych's party deserting him.
So again, his voice gets more stern when he starts pointing his fingers, and generally his body becomes more active. The second gesture that I want to look at is this gesture here, the open palms gesture that Kerry uses. Along with the words he uses, he often uses this gesture to portray the virtuous actions of the US government. For example, a willingness to cooperate or encouraging progress. The palm gesture I'm speaking of, his palms are exposed to the audience and the camera, his thumbs are slightly apart from the rest of his hands, and his arms are a bit out from his main body. All of the videos I'm going to show you are from the same press conference. He uses this a great deal, the exposed palm gesture, but mostly it's to do with positive sentiment, progress. He uses it here. I hope this is clear.
With the good faith that people are looking for in this.
So when he said the good faith, his palms came out and they're exposed to the audience. So again, positive sentiment, good faith. He does it again here in this video, in this clip.
Do that. It's our hope that in the face-to-face meeting of the regime and the opposition will be the beginning.
So again, face-to-face meeting, that's another thing. It would be a breakthrough to have a face-to-face meeting with the regime and the opposition. So he's, again, indicating that that would be a virtuous and positive step forward with his palms exposed. He does it again in this clip.
This is in an effort to try to encourage the parties to come.
So again, in an effort to encourage the parties, and his palms are exposed again as a virtuous and positive thing that will show cooperation. He does it here again.
Both of us have agreed to try to work to see if that could be achieved.
To see if that can be achieved, again, his palms are briefly exposed to the camera. Again.
Prepared to do that. We also discussed the possibility of prisoner exchanges.
So the possibility of prisoner exchanges, as you can see here, his palms are exposed. It's a sign of cooperation that they've discussed this possibility. Now in this video, this is a very special clip because this clip right here merges the two which we've looked at. He uses finger pointing in this video to what's the right word? To show Iran, to tell off Iran in a way, with his finger pointing, and then he moves to the open palms, and you can see how the finger pointing, he has a stern voice, and then he uses the open palm gesture straight after, and it's about virtuous cooperation and agreement and progress. Here we go.
But Iran has yet to state whether or not it supports implementing the Geneva I communique.
So as you can see, the stern voice and the finger pointing is used, and watch how he changes.
Which calls for nothing more than the mutual consent.
So mutual consent, it calls for nothing more. And again, the palms are exposed. It's again virtuous cooperation, which he's alluding to, and his palms are exposed.
Of the parties to a transitional governing process to make peace.
Peace. Positive. Palms are exposed.
Iran, we would welcome Iran's participation if Iran is coming to participate for the purposes of the conference.
Coming to participate for the purposes of the conference, to cooperate. Palms are exposed again.
That is not a matter of ideology. That is a matter of practicality and common sense. If they're going to participate in order to further the goals of the conference, they would be welcome.
They would be welcome. Welcome to cooperate. Just looking at some pictures of John Kerry, these are in black and white because I found it was easier to see them in black and white than in colour. Just looking at when he does the open palms or the palms exposed gesture right here, his head is tilted to his left. There are creases on his eyebrows, and his creases on his forehead, and his eyebrows are in this kind of downward slope, kind of looking like this. He has a little bit of bags under his eyes, so he's squinting his eyes a little bit, maybe out of sympathy, or maybe a feeling. I'm not sure what he's saying. I don't know what he was saying when he did this open palms gesture. Also notice how the straight line that can be drawn between his shoulders and where his hands are, and that's beautifully represented here as well. You can see that the way he's doing this open palms gesture generally, his shoulder is not at 90 degrees. His hands and his arms are almost giving something to the people he's talking to. It's a very generous looking gesture. It's as if he's giving something to the audience, and again the straight line can be drawn here. He's also got, again here, some creases on his forehead, and he looks very sincere with his eye contact and his eyebrows, and generally everything to do with the eyes is very sincere with the open palm gesture. Also in this one, he's giving the open palm gesture again, as you can see here, and again his head is tilted to the left. Again we have the creases on the forehead, we have half eyelids here, and again some bags under the eyes, so there's some eye squinting again. And this is a different picture. This is a picture I imagine he's saying, now let me make myself crystal clear. You can see here he's looking, we can see hardly or no eyelid. He's looking from below tensed eyebrows, and also I've highlighted these lines near his nose, which have kind of been more pronounced with this kind of look. His lips are also a lot thinner in this picture, more stern perhaps, more tension in the lip area. If you notice his finger pointing here, just have a look at the composition of his fingers in this photo. This index finger is pointing straight up. This thumb is resting on the middle finger. The little finger is curled up, and look how it's very interestingly very similar to this picture right here. Again, the index finger is up, the thumb is resting on the middle finger, the little finger is curled up. If I zoom out, they're almost exactly the same, really, which is very fascinating to me, how somebody can get into a state of mind and their body almost does exactly the same thing. They're very, very similar, but again here, if I show you this picture, little bit different. As you can see, this little finger is a little bit more pushed into the palm than this one. It's a little bit more loose. And in this picture, obviously, we see hardly any eyelid, looking above a little bit less tensed eyebrows. I just wanted to show you the difference in his hands here, and how when his index finger is straight up, this hand is a lot more tense, but here it's a little bit less tense. And doing just a very general discourse analysis for John Kerry, from the many interviews I've watched of him, he seems to lean most of all towards the visual side. He uses kinesthetic words like tackle things, running in Congress, how we feel. He uses a lot of audio phrases. I talked about, let me tell you about something, we have to speak about something, but generally there's a lot of visual words in his discourse, in what he says. He talks about seeing the bigger picture. He says a lot, let me be crystal clear about something. He's always having a look at options. He's always overlooking the consequences, looking for solutions. He uses the word oversight a couple of times. So generally quite visual in his. Just a couple of interesting things about John Kerry. This isn't a comprehensive biography. You can read plenty of those online, like on Wikipedia, Forbes magazine, etc., GQ. Um, but just a couple of interesting things about him. Born 11th of December 1943. Parents' background. His father was in the Foreign Service. He said in a GQ interview, I also never saw my father a lot growing up because he was in the Foreign Service and always travelling. Okay, wait. I just went down too much. Oh yeah, how do they see themselves? He has windsurfed to the Cape from Cape Cod to Nantucket. It seems a really long way. He's done it 4 times. It takes 6 hours. I mean, that takes some stamina and some sort of mental discipline, I think. I don't know. But he makes out that it's very fun. He says when you get tired, you just drop your sail and sit for a minute. So it also sounds quite relaxing. I also read he has a passion for ice hockey. When asked, this was an interview in 2004. It's a very old interview, but he was asked whether he was. Oh no, wait. This is a later interview. He was asked whether he wanted to run for president again. And he said, no, I'm out of politics. I have no plans whatsoever. This is the last stop, he said. And that's his job as the foreign, what do they call it in America? They have a different name for it, but the British equivalent of the foreign minister. Injuries. He has a couple of injuries from his time in Vietnam. 1968, he was in charge of a small boat, and there was a kind of confrontation with some locals. He had a shrapnel wound in his left arm, above the elbow, and received a Purple Heart. Another injury, of course, I don't know all his injuries, but these are just the ones on Wikipedia. A wound received in the situation from Boda River in 1969. He was hit with an RPG round, pieces of shrapnel in his left leg that wounded him. And it says that Kerry still has shrapnel in his left thigh. I don't know how much pain that's giving him, or whether that actually is something we should take into consideration when looking at his body language, because that might change the way he walks, things like that. I don't know. This is not a comprehensive timeline, but just some interesting things here. Born in Aurora, Colorado. 1962, he starts at Yale. And then just a year after that, JFK was assassinated, and Kerry is playing football. He was playing a football match when the announcement was made in the stadium that JFK had been shot. In 1966, he was enlisted in the Naval Reserve, and 4 years later, he gets married. And then, a year after that, he's the first. I think this is when he first comes onto the political stage to the public. April 1971, he becomes the first Vietnam veteran to testify in Congress about the war. I watched that footage. It's very interesting to see him at that time. And I think that was a historical event for him, and he uses very emotional words, and it's very interesting to watch, actually. And I learnt a lot from what he was saying. 1973, his first daughter was born. Yeah, and then I'm not going to go further on from there, because then you've got the presidential campaign, and you've got just lots of other things happening, which are more personal. Thank you for watching, and wherever you are, I hope you have a great day.